Hey there, TikTakers! Merry Christmas! We love these days, full of joy, dreams, illuminations, reunions, and given the success of our first Halloween evening, we couldn't miss the opportunity to share a new evening together. Of course, with a very different theme. In addition to interesting Christmas legends, in this video we will tell you many curiosities and we will give you several surprises. So prepare a piece of nougat because we're getting started! In many countries, in addition to bringing gifts from Santa Claus, the three wise men also bring gifts. But did you know that in Iceland they don't have one Santa Claus but 13? These are the 13 jólasveinarnir in Icelandic or Yule lads in English. From their childhood, Icelandic children hear the story of Grilla, who is a terrible ogress that lives in a cave in the mountains with her husband Lipaludi, their black hat, and their 13 children, the jólasveinarnir. At Christmas, Grilla goes out looking for naughty and disobedient children to put in her boiling pot and then eat them. Her 13 children, on the other hand, leave the mountains to commit all kinds of pranks, but also to leave the children gifts. Or rotten potatoes, depending on how they have behaved during the year. These peculiar brothers don't visit all the Icelandic children in a single night, as Santa Claus does. But they come down from the mountains little by little during the dates close to Christmas. Every night, one of the brothers goes down and spends 13 days doing mischief and punishing or rewarding children. The first one goes down on December 12th and doesn't leave until Christmas Day, the 25th. And the last one has to go down on December 24th and doesn't return to the mountains until January 6th, when it is time to say goodbye Christmas dates in Iceland. In order to receive gifts, Icelandic children leave a shoe in their bedroom window for the 13 nights before Christmas. Each of these nights, a jólasveinarnir visits them and leaves sweets and small gifts in their shoes if they have been well behaved. However, if they have messed up, they will leave them a rotten potato. The personality of these 13 Santa Clauses has softened over the years. Because in the past, it was said that bad children were eaten, and today, in the worst case, they will have a smelly tuber. We describe each of them in order of appearance at Christmas. Stekkjastor. He arrives on December 12th. He's dedicated to disturbing the sheep and has wooden legs. Giljagur. He arrives on the 13th. He sneaks into stables to steal milk. Stufur. He appears on the 14th. He is very short and the youngest. He loves to lick pans and eat the leftovers stuck to them. Vrasleikur. He arrives on the 15th. He is very skinny and steals wooden spoons to lick them. Hotaksfil. He arrives on the 16th. Steal the remains that have remained in the pots and pans. Askasleikir. The one that arrives on the 17th. He hides under the beds, waiting for someone to put an askur under them to steal it. The askur is a bowl whose lid is used as a plate. Hurdaskalir. He appears on December 18th. He likes to bang and close doors at night. Skargamor. He arrives on the 19th. He is obsessed with skyr, a typical Icelandic yogurt. Jöknukaikir. He arrives on the 20th. Steals the sausages. Don't leave a single one. Gluggagur, the one that arrives on the 21st. He spies through the windows looking for something to steal. Gutafur, the one that arrives on the 22nd. He has a very large nose and a very good sense of smell that he uses to steal the traditional Icelandic bread. Ketkurkur, he arrives on the 23rd. Uses a hook to steal meat. It is his favorite food. And finally, on the 24th, Kurtasnikir arrives. He follows the children in order to steal their candles to later eat them. Do you remember that we told you that Grilla, apart from living with her husband and 13 children, also lives with a cat? It is known as the jólakjótturinn, or the Yule cat. He is a cat who hunts people who haven't received new clothes as a Christmas present. We leave you with this video where we explained it to you a few years ago. TikTakers, you know we love traveling to experience new cultures and classic legends. And now that it's Christmas time, we'll be going to Northern Europe. There, they have their own traditional holiday, Yuletide, when families get together to celebrate the winter solstice. Iceland's mythology from that era is filled with creepy characters. Among them, there is a terrible witch, Grilla, who kidnaps bad children. There is also her sons, the Yuletide lads, 13 pranksters who like to prank people and steal their belongings. This peculiar family, who lives in a cave in the Dimuborgir lava fields, also has a pet, a huge cat named Jólakötturinn, also referred to as the Yule Cat. He's a malicious feline that wanders through the fields looking for and hunting people who haven't received new clothes as a Christmas gift. Although this seems extremely trivial, receiving new clothes said a lot about a person back then, since it was a tradition for lords to give clothes to the most hard-working peasants. This also applies to children. Not having new wool clothes means that they behaved badly during the year. The Yule Cat is not only huge but also strong and fierce. The appearance of its fur and colors are similar to the typical Norwegian forest cat, but it can be as big as a puma or even bigger. Some say that it can change its size depending on the circumstances. It can become big to get to hard-to-reach places or become small to pass through holes and cracks. Besides being pretty intelligent, the Yule Cat also hides in the snow, and when its victims least expect it, it swiftly attacks them using its feline skills. It can end up devouring them directly, or could bring them to the house of its owner, Grilla, the witch, who will store them as food to last until the next winter. The legend of the Yule Cat dates back to the 13th century, although its exact origin is unknown. Some say it could actually be a tilbury or snakur, an artificial being created by wizards or witches through the use of supernatural powers, just like golems. Others relate the Yule Cat to one of the most feared Nordic creatures, the Urdakotur. The Yule Cat didn't appear in written literature until the 19th century, although the farmers and landlords have always used it to push their workers to shear the sheep and process their wool during autumn, before Christmas. Those who participate and fulfill their goal would receive new clothes as a gift. However, those who were lazy and didn't do it would receive nothing and would be chased by this terrifying cat. The poorest people who had no clothes could save themselves thanks to the generosity of wealthier families, thus fostering charity. In some classic versions of the legend, the Yule Cat just eats the Christmas food and snacks. And its depiction as a devouring beast was actually popularized by a poem written by one of Iceland's most prolific authors, Jóhannes úr Kötlum. One positive thing about the legend is that this creature forced people to behave well, at least during the holidays. And another one is that the children would receive plenty of winter clothes as well as candies and toys during this time. This is something that Grilla and her cat hated and made them mad, since they couldn't stand seeing children so happy. The Yule Cat is a very common icon during the holidays in Iceland and can be seen depicted in many different forms, such as stickers, plushes, and Christmas ornaments. It also appears in children's tales, TV shows, songs, and little by little it's becoming more known around the world. This explains why Icelanders give so much importance to gifting clothes on Christmas and why they are such fans of knitting. So now you know, TikTakers. If you receive a jersey or woolen socks, don't pout. Be grateful that those clothes will save you from the Yule Cat. These 13 Santa Clauses have reminded us of Krampus, the evil version of Santa Claus. Do you remember him with us, TikTakers? After the Krampus video, we have prepared a surprise for you this Christmas. Don't go away. From the Alps, his legend is thousands of years old. Krampus is a pagan creature of great dimensions, half goat, half demon. This terrible character doesn't bring any gifts on his sleigh. He doesn't have any elves helping him either. But he does have chains and a basket full of birch tree sticks he uses to hit spoiled kids. If children have been exceptionally naughty and they don't regret it, he doesn't hesitate to take them with him to hell inside his basket. There, they'll be tortured and then eaten up. People say Krampus, whose name comes from the German pidgin Krampen, meaning claw, is the son of the goddess Hel, the one in charge of the underworld in the Nordic mythology. He has a hairy body, long horns, fangs, a long tongue, and dimensional claws. This legendary beast also shares some physical characteristics with other creatures in the Greek mythology, such as satyrs or fauns. According to folklore, Krampus comes on the night of the 5th of December, known as Krampusnacht, which literally means Krampus night. Same night Nikolaustag is celebrated, St. Nicholas Day. The relation between St. Nicholas and Krampus is an analogy of the eternal fight between good and bad. Alpine kids who have been good wait for Santa to fill up their boots with candies, tangerines, cookies, and a chocolate St. Nicholas. But of course, not everybody has been good, and that's when Krampus, accompanied by the sound of the bells and the chains, appears as Santa Claus' evil's partner. In some regions of countries like Germany, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovenia, Croatia, the north of Italy, and Austria, it is traditional to have neighbors dress up as this creature to perform an old ritual known as Krampuslauf or Krampusrun. They dress up with costumes made of ram leather, diabolic masks, and goat horns. They carry torches while they wander around the street, scaring and whipping with dry limbs both children and adults in the streets. They can even tackle careless passers-by. In the past, it was also typical to offer what was called Krampus schnapps, that is, a distilled fruit brandy. This Krampus festivity was banned for long periods of time. The Catholic Church recurrently pressured governors to stop these pagan parties. It was also banned during the Nazi Germany of the Third Reich. It was considered to be a festivity driven by social democrats. But Krampus is back now. In the last years, it's been entering the popular culture through its appearance in theme parties, movies, comics, merchandising, and Christmas gifts. It's been gaining more and more followers, lots of them from the United States, where it is emerging as an icon of the movement in favor of anti-Christmas celebrations. Be careful with being naughty, TikTakers. Christmas beasts lie in wait and there's no way of hiding from their claws. And now the promises due, TikTakers. The do-it-yourself are back. Surely you still have the TikTak balls at home, or the angels that we have made in previous years. Today, we will teach you how to create a beautiful Christmas decoration which you can personalize with photos or drawings. Do you want to see the result? What do you think of this photo frame for the tree? To do this, you will need these materials. Some wooden sticks. With 3 is enough, we will cut the third one in half. Colored felt, a small piece of ribbon, string, or wool, markers, scissors, a brush, a silicone stick or wood glue, another round piece of wood, and the photo or drawing you want. Let's get started! The first thing we will do is paint the wooden sticks so that they dry. We will use this white paint. If instead of TikTak you want to create another character, you can paint it another color and create your own design. Now we're going to make the hat, the gloves, and the boots. We're going to use these pieces of felt. To make the shape, if it is easier for you, you can draw it first with a pencil. We'll cut carefully, and if you're little, you can ask your parents for help in this part. And so all the pieces would remain. For the face, we will paint the round wood with a marker. Right, it's time to write it. To form the body of our ornament, we will have to glue the sticks in this position. 4 drops of silicone on the back. Be very careful not to burn yourself, TikTakers. Now we will glue the boots, so we turn the wooden sticks over, leaving the white part facing up, and glue them on the bottom. We repeat the same in the upper part with the gloves, and we continue with the head, gluing the same way, and just above the head we glue the ribbon. To do this, we will turn it and glue it from behind. What do you think? But the most important thing is still missing, the photo. We turn it over again and we put some silicone on it. Be sure to put only in the corners so that the paper doesn't get damaged. And ready, TikTakers. This would be the result. If you do it at home, send us photos, we want to see them. And after these crafts, we leave you with an adaptation of the classic Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol. Enjoy, we'll be back later with more surprises.
Ho ho ho! Merry Christmas, TikTakers! How are your holidays going? Did you get a lot of presents? Or maybe you're the kind of person who prefers not to talk about it. The truth is that although almost everyone feels happy and joyful during Christmas, there are many people that hate this time of the year. A classic and well-known example of the anti-Christmas feeling comes from Ebenezer Scrooge. This grumpy little man made his first appearance in the 1843 novella A Christmas Carol by the British author Charles Dickens. Let's now share with you a version of this story. Ebenezer Scrooge was a greedy and covetous pessimist with a heart as hard as a stone. He was a lonely man who hated children, Christmas, and anything that produced happiness. On Christmas Eve, everyone was busy buying gifts and preparing Christmas dinner. Scrooge was in his office as always, with his door open and watching his clerk transcribe some letters. Suddenly, Fred, Scrooge's nephew, came into the place wishing his uncle and the clerk a Merry Christmas. Fred invited Scrooge to spend Christmas Eve with his family, but he rejected the invitation, saying that all that Christmas junk was just rubbish. The name of the clerk was Bob Cratchit, who had to keep working until night time even though it was Christmas Eve. Scrooge didn't allow his employees to have days off. Scrooge lived in a cold and gloomy building, just like him. When he got home, he ate a pretty dull dinner and then went to bed. However, when he was about to fall asleep, something very weird happened. A ghost appeared in front of him, and there was no doubt of who this ghost was, as his face was unmistakable. It was Jacob Marley, Scrooge's business partner who had passed away 7 years ago. Jacob told Scrooge that because he had been so greedy in life, all of his evil transformed into a large and heavy chain that he was doomed to carry for all eternity. He announced that Scrooge's fate was even worse and warned him that he would have a last chance to change when he was visited by the three spirits of Christmas. Surprisingly, Scrooge wasn't scared and challenged that prediction. However, the spirits didn't keep Scrooge waiting. The first spirit to appear is the spirit of Christmas past. This is a strange character. At first sight, it looked like a child, but when seen through the spirit's supernatural aura, it looks more like an old person. This strange ghost reminds Scrooge of his life as a child and a young man, filled with melancholy and longing before he became addicted to work, and before his disproportionate obsession with money. This ghost takes Scrooge to where he was raised and shows him when Scrooge was just a child working in a store as an apprentice. Scrooge feels very sad and lonely and remembers his sister, who he loved very much. The second spirit to visit Scrooge is the spirit of Christmas present. This is a festive giant wearing a simple dark green tunic, exuding a splendorous aura and holding a burning torch. Through different scenes, this spirit shows Scrooge the way people live Christmas in the present. A market filled with joy where people are buying gifts, the house of a miner, and a lighthouse in the middle of the sea. Scrooge and the spirit then visit Fred's house, where he's having the Christmas dinner with his family and friends. Fred is seen remembering his uncle with compassion. Afterwards, the spirit takes Scrooge to the house of Bob Cratchit, his clerk. Here, they see Bob's family and his son Tim, a child who is usually happy and joyful, but who's terribly sick. And despite their poverty and their son's illness, the family still celebrate Christmas with joy. Scrooge feels sadness for the first time in a very long time and asks the spirit if the child will recover. The spirit tells Scrooge that the child will die soon if his situation doesn't change. After that, the spirit of Christmas future arrives to visit Scrooge. This spirit is a being covered in a robe black as midnight, which hides its head, its face, and its shape. Only its extended hand can be seen. This ghost shows Scrooge scenes from a Christmas day in the future. They can see people talking about the death of a man. Businessmen among them say that they will only attend the funeral if it includes lunch. The housemaid and the gravedigger steal the man's former belongings as his body still lays on his bed. Scrooge asks if the death of this man has stirred any emotion on anyone in town. The spirit shows him a young couple who owed money to this man. They feel happy and relieved after the death of that merciless loan shark, as they will now have more time to pay their debt. Scrooge then asks to see some compassion. The spirit takes him to the house of Bob Cratchit's family, who are mourning the death of little Tim. The family couldn't pay for their son's treatment with the low salary Scrooge was paying Bob. Afterwards, the spirit takes Scrooge to the graveyard, where he shows him the abandoned grave of that man nobody mourned. Horrified, Scrooge discovers that the name written on the grave is his own name and that the dead man people were talking about was him. Seeing this, Scrooge is so terrified that he implores for a second chance to change. And then, the greedy man awakens from his nightmare and becomes a very generous and kind man. A man who celebrates Christmas and helps those around him. Although in the end of the novel, Scrooge redeems himself thanks to the spirits, his name went down in history as a synonym of greed and a complete lack of Christmas spirit. We believe that we should try to be good and generous all year long, and then keep up with it during Christmas, just with more lights, glitter, and delicious food.
Time to tell you a curiosity. As you already know from other videos, in the TikTak draw team, we are all Galician from a community in Spain called Galicia. For a few years, one of our cities, Vigo, has become very famous for its Christmas lights. And even the mayor of this city has proposed to turn this municipality into a Christmas benchmark with more than 11 million LED lights, trying to make the lighting in the city look like New York. It's Christmas lighting, which begins to be placed in summertime and has a lighting duration of 2 months, has become very famous in our country. How do you spend Christmas in your area? A decoration that cannot be missing is the Christmas tree. In today's video, we want to focus on one of the most typical elements during Christmas time and one of our favorites, the tree. The tree is the key and most pleasing element when it comes to celebrating these days, creating a total Christmas atmosphere wherever they are. Traditionally, conifers from perennial leaves were used, mainly fir trees. Nowadays, using artificial trees is the most typical thing. These can be decorated with ribbons, colorful ornaments, lights, tinsel. There are several theories around the origin of the Christmas tree. One of the most widespread says it comes from the Celts. When the first Christians arrived in the north of Europe, they found out people there celebrated the birth of Frey, god of the sun and fertility, by decorating a tree during the winter solstice on similar dates as Christian Christmas. This tree symbolizes the tree of the universe, called Yggdrasil. Heaven was on its top and the kingdom of the dead laid on its deepest roots. In order to find the start of what nowadays we consider to be our Christmas tree, we have to look back between the years 680 and 754. Back then, Saint Boniface, one of the main evangelists in Germany, thought it was impossible to get rid of the Celtic tradition from the root. So he decided to adapt it by giving it a Christian sense. The legend says he cut with an axe an oak that represented a Nordic god and instead planted a pine tree, which, since it is a perennial tree, represents God's love. He decorated it with apples and candles. Apples represented the original sin and candles Jesus' light. With time, apples and candles transformed into balls, lights, and other ornaments. People say the first Christmas tree, as we know it nowadays, appeared in Germany in 1605 to create some atmosphere around the Christmas cold, and it was then it began to spread around. It made it to Finland in 1800, though it took longer for it to arrive in England. It was Prince Albert, husband of Queen Victoria, who asked to have the Windsor Castle decorated with a Christmas tree. When the European immigrants arrived in the North American territory, they made the Christmas tree popular, and from there to the rest of the world. With time, different traditions and mixture of cultures were added to it, such as the star on the top, with its origin in the Philippines, or leaving the gifts sent by Santa Claus underneath the Christmas tree. Do you set the Christmas tree up at your home? If we talk about celebrations, another one that is celebrated in a very different way is the farewell to the old year and the welcome to the new year. We are looking forward to December 31st to eat 12 grapes and make our wish. We'll show you how they celebrate it in other parts of the world. In every country, culture, or religion, there is a different way of celebrating the arrival of the new year. Today, we're gonna tell you about 8 different New Year's traditions that we've found quite peculiar. In Spain, we celebrate by eating the traditional 12 lucky grapes, while we watch on TV the broadcast of the 12 strokes from the Puerta del Sol in Madrid. Afterwards, we all toast. In Italy, people celebrated with lentils, symbol of wealth and money. At an Italian table, they can't miss a good and nice dish of lentils during New Year's Eve, Notte di Capodanno. The more they eat, the luckier they will be in the new year. Curiously enough, there are lots of families in Chile that also eat lentils and say goodbye to the year with the 12 grapes. Traditions that have been passed on by the Italian and Spanish immigrants who traveled there. Scotland is one of the most curious countries when it comes to their celebrations. They do the Hogmanay, a party where they burn a wooden barrel and throw it down the street. This symbolizes getting rid of obstacles for the new year. They also base their years on the face of the first person they see coming in. If he or she has a nice appearance, good things are coming their way. On the contrary, if they don't have a nice appearance, bad luck will reign at that home. Danish people welcome the new year in a noisy and de-stressing way. Denmark's tradition consists in breaking dishes after the New Year's Eve dinner. In the past, and still nowadays in some areas, the plates were smashed against the doors of your beloved ones, who were very happy about it since it represented love and good omen for the coming year. Lots of broken dishes mean lots of loyal friends. In the US, New York City is one of the preferred places to say goodbye to the old year. The countdown at midnight in Times Square, gathering millions of people who come to enjoy concerts, fireworks, is really one of my dream places to spend the last night of the year. Anyone wants to invite me? We love Japanese curiosities, and we know you do too. During New Year's Eve dinner, they always have soba, traditional wheat noodles. Their length represents prosperity and a long life. At midnight, temples ring their bells 108 times in order to purify the 108 human sins that, according to Buddhism, cause human suffering. Japanese people then go visit the temples. In some regions of Mexico, Peru, or Venezuela, people burn all the bad aspects from the old year. They usually build a doll made of old rags and stuffed with fireworks and firecrackers to light them up and symbolize leaving the bad things from the old year behind. In Germany, people usually decorate tables with figurines of a chimney sweeper and a little pig with a clover. Some melt pieces of lead, and at midnight they toast with champagne and people go out in the streets with fireworks. Apart from the typical traditions of the country, in each area we have many others that enrich our culture. And if we talk about enriching, you should see the Galician tables at Christmas lunches and dinners. Our fame in the rest of Spain is for very good gastronomy and the freshest seafood. Prawns, scallops, leaf barnacles, crabs, or clams are synonymous with a happy Galician. Let's see how Christmas is celebrated in other parts of the world. Hey there, TikTakers! Today we bring you a new video where we will travel the world to discover the most curious traditions about Christmas. We want to start with the Philippines, where the longest Christmas in the world is celebrated, because the festivities begin at the end of September and end in January. One of the most important aspects of Christmas in this country is its decoration, mainly in the paroles. large illuminated stars that emerged in the late 1920s as a way of lightening the way for the faithful who went to mass through the jungle. Japan is the country of curious traditions par excellence, and at Christmas it couldn't be missing either. Although in the Japanese country the majority of religion is Buddhism, since the 70s they have celebrated Christmas in a very special way, even if it isn't a holiday. Thanks to an advertising campaign by the food chain Kentucky Fried Chicken, the Japanese often stay to eat fried chicken around these dates. And for dessert, Christmas cake, a cream and a strawberry cake that is bought and eaten on Christmas Day and is especially important for young Japanese couples. In Argentina, they have a curious Christmas tradition among women of giving away pink underwear at Christmas to call for good luck. Christmas in Australia is very different from other countries. It is summer there, and it is traditional to celebrate these dates with barbecues on the beach while watching the fireworks. It is also possible to meet Santa Claus surfing the waves. Christmas in India is full of light. Instead of pine or fir trees, families decorate banana or mango trees, and houses and streets are filled with candles and clay fuel lamps. In Norway, the cradle of Vikings and fjords, they have a tradition of hiding brooms and mops, because Norwegians are a bit superstitious and protect themselves from the evil spirits that return to Earth that night to steal the broom and go for a walk with them through the Christmas sky. In Ukraine, these will not be their best Christmas, but they also have a curious tradition. They decorate with spider webs. They're not real, they're decorations that look like spider webs and serve to bring good luck. According to legend, a long time ago, there was once a widow who lived with her children in a small house. They were so poor that at Christmas they could only afford a small tree, but not its decoration. However, one Christmas Eve night, the spiders wove their webs around the tree, and when the rays of the Christmas morning sun hit it, the spider web turned gold and silver. Other countries, such as Poland or Germany, believe that finding a spider or spider web on the Christmas tree will bring good luck. In Mexico and other Latin American countries such as Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, and Panama, Las Posadas are celebrated. There are festivities that take place during the 9 days before Christmas, from December 16th to the 24th. Those festivities remind people of the pilgrimage of Mary and Joseph from their departure from Nazareth to Bethlehem. Family, neighbors, and friends get together and pretend to make the journey with a procession that goes from house to house, each day in a different one. It is also common to break a piñata in the shape of a 7-pointed star representing the 7 deadly sins. In Sweden, they have a very special relationship with Donald Duck during Christmas. This hour-long TV show airs on Christmas Eve at 3 p.m. and all parties are planned around it so families can watch it together. Finally, we wanted to end with a very simple Latvian tradition, but one that we found precious. The Latvian Christmas motto is "A gift, a poem," because this custom is based on the fact that after Christmas Eve dinner, you have to distribute the Christmas gifts that are under the tree, but people can't take them until they recite a little poem. So you always have to have some prepared, if not, you can be left without a gift. We thought it was a lovely tradition that would be great if it is spread all over the world. Don't you think, TikTakers? And what gifts have you asked for this Christmas? Many of you will agree on video games or toys. Do you want to know the toys we asked for when we were little? Here goes another video. Santa's coming! Peppa Pig's house, PJ Masks cars, Paw Patrol Merpaps, LOL Surprise, Hatchimals. Back in my times, there was nothing like this. I'm probably older than you, but just a bit, huh? Today, I wanted to introduce to you my childhood. And for those of you who are from my same generation, bring back some good memories about yours as well. In this video, I'm gonna tell you about my favorite toys when I was a kid. Some are more playful while others are more educational, but most of them are still sold successfully nowadays. Updated classics we will probably agree on. Let's start with one of my so longed for toys, Furbies. Those adorable friends that learn fast and answer to what you say, changing their personality depending on how you treat them. They have a weird shape, a hybrid between a mouse, a cat, a bat, and an owl. When you played with your Furby, you had a spoon to feed him, and you couldn't forget to do so. They meant a lot of work. And speaking about toys that need to be taken care of, who could ever forget about Tamagotchis? Those virtual pets created during the late 90s in Japan. Egg-shaped with a little black and white screen. You could take it anywhere. It had 3 buttons, and when your Tamagotchi died, it was an actual drama. There are lots of versions nowadays. You know, we love Barbies. What can we say about them? We made a whole video telling you about their story. You can check it out here. The most famous dolls in the world, full of accessories that got us all dreaming. How many times have we brushed their hair, dressed and undressed our Barbies? And even though Ken is Barbie's official boyfriend, we always used an action man instead. That toy specialized in challenges and extreme sports exhibitions, secret agent at the same time, who made us want to live the biggest adventures. When it came to playing mommies and daddies, Nanuka babies were always around. Tender, soft, and irresistible. You always felt like taking care of them, pamper them, and give them love. Legos were the passion of many, and still are nowadays. We spent hours building towers to see how high they could get. We also remember spending so many afternoons and evenings with our family playing board games. Well, still now. As well as other classics such as Twister, Clue. How could we forget about Uno, 13 Dead End Drive, Heads Up, Guess Who, Hungry Hungry Hippos, Operation, Crocodile Dentist. So much fun we had. And what would my childhood have been like without Playmobiles? The island, the pirate ship, the farm, the zoo. The Game Boy was the handheld game console of our dreams. Hours and hours playing Mario Land, Pokemon, Donkey Kong, and Kirby, who could expand his body. We've used lots of batteries trying to go through Zelda's different screens. Memories, memories. We haven't mentioned so many toys. X-Collectric, Play-Doh, Micro Machines, Monopoly, Connect 4, Mousetrap. There are so many. We can't wait to open the Christmas gifts.
Earlier, we mentioned that our Christmas lunches and dinners are very abundant and delicious. But we also have a very special breakfast. And that's the one for January the 1st. Have fun, and when dawn begins, they have a delicious hot chocolate with churros for breakfast together. Those who don't go out at night don't miss the tradition either, and have breakfast at home with the family. But not everyone likes these dates. For all the Grinch watching us, this video is for you.
Oh, Christmas. Everybody loves Christmas. Santa Claus, the reindeers, the elves, the mistletoe, the carols, the snowmans, families together. Bah, humbug. If you're allergic to mistletoe, Christmas carols bug you. So much light melts your retina, and you can't stand one more dinner with your brother-in-law. Do not worry, you're not alone in this. Throughout history, there has been many characters empty of Christmas spirit. Let's see some of them. One of the anti-Christmas classics of all times is Ebenezer Scrooge. This grumpy old man first appeared in 1843 in the novella Christmas Carol, written by the British writer Charles Dickens. In the beginning of the story, Scrooge, a greedy moneylender with a cold heart, hates kids, Christmas, and everything that causes happiness. And even though at the end of the novel Scrooge redeems himself, his name has gone down in history as a synonym of greed and the total lack of Christmas spirit. The Grinch is another classic Christmas hater. This green creature with an evil smile, highest critic of the consumerist society, is determined to take away from the calendar these so endearing dates. Born out of Theodore Seuss Geissel's imagination, better known as Dr. Seuss, he first appeared in the children's book How the Grinch Stole Christmas, published in 1957. After a great success with the book, the story took the leap to TV and from there to comics with Marvel. In 1999, Jim Carrey brought him to life in the movie directed by Ron Howard. We all know a Grinch is automatically a person who doesn't like Christmas. The Pumpkin King, Jack Skellington is a character created by the filmmaker Tim Burton for the animated movie Nightmare Before Christmas, directed by Henry Selick and produced by Burton. This long skeleton is the one in charge of the Halloween celebrations in his town, but he ends up getting bored. One day, he finds out about Christmas in Christmas Town and, excited, he will do anything it takes to take Christmas to his friends, even kidnapping Santa Claus himself and substituting him, putting it all in danger. Krampus is a traditional folklore figure from the Alpine countries. Legend says Krampus was the one in charge of punishing bad kids, that is, Santa Claus's opposite. His appearance is terrifying. Half demon, half goat, hairy body, long horns and a long tongue. Instead of using his sleigh bells, he announces his arrival with rusty chains and bells. And even though his origins are uncertain, it is believed that he's a pre-Christian figure. On the night of the 5th of December, this frightening character goes out in the streets to scare children and adults during 2 weeks. So, you've been warned. Behave! Another character who's here to torment us in these dates is a Stripe, the most evil leader in Gremlins from 1984. He likes Christmas, he likes stealing gifts, and to do so, he leads a legion of gremlins that spread terror, death, and destruction in Christmas Eve. So, it is obvious Christmas isn't as nice as it seems to be. Do you love or hate Christmas? Santa Claus, Papá Noel, Viejito Pascuero, Father Christmas, Père Noël, Pai Natal. He has so many names as countries he's present in, but he represents the same thing in all of them. That chubby and kind old man who brings gifts during Christmas to the kids that have been good. His origin also has a lot of different sources. Almost all regions in the world have some mythological character related to Christmas time. But the most important, the one that led to today's Santa Claus, is the Christian Saint Nicholas. Saint Nicholas of Myra, or Nicholas of Bari, was a saint born around the year 270 in Patara, in the region of Lycia, what is nowadays known as the southwest of Turkey. He was the son of a wealthy family. His father was a merchant in the Adriatic Sea, and wanted him to follow his steps. But his mother would rather have him become a priest as his uncle, Myra's bishop. What they did teach him was solidarity with others and always helping those in need. So much that they both died because of a plague, trying to help those who had fallen ill. Nicholas, a teenager back then, was so affected that he decided to share his fortune with the poor and moved to Myra to become a priest with the support of his uncle, the bishop. When he died, Nicholas became the bishop, and he soon became very popular thanks to his miracles and his charity work. The most famous case was that of a humble family that was so poor they couldn't pay the dowry for their 3 daughters. Back in the day, dowries were necessary for girls to get married. Nicholas decided to throw some coins through the chimney in their house, and they happened to fall inside the stockings the daughters had hung to dry. This is the origin of the tradition of hanging Christmas stockings at home so that Santa leaves our gifts inside. He died between the years 345 and 352 in Myra, and because of his actions he was named a saint. Worshipping his figure became very popular around Europe, and more miracles started to take place in his name. For instance, in the Italian city of Bari, where his remains lay during World War II, a boy was separated from his mom during a bombing, but he was put safe and guided to his home by a man with the appearance of the saint. But Saint Nicholas isn't the one and only Santa Claus predecessor. In the German towns in the north of Europe, before Christianism arrived, a festivity in December was celebrated already, called Yule. One of its protagonists was Woda, a god with the appearance of an old man with long beard, related to wisdom and healing. In Holland, Belgium, and Switzerland, Santa Claus isn't the protagonist. Sinterklaas is a saint protector of kids who brings them presents on the day of their festivity, 6th of December. In some places, he's accompanied by the Zwarte Piet, pages from the north of Africa. In other areas, by the sinister Smutsli, a farmer who whips with his rod kids that haven't behaved. In England, they had Father Christmas, a figure created in the 16th century to represent the spirit of Christmas, who brought along with him peace, happiness, and celebration. He was represented as a big man with a beard, dressed with a green gun, and he was one of the protagonists in the famous novel Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. All these traditions kept surviving and getting mixed until the character nowadays known as Santa Claus was born. His origin is in the United States, and people believe its origin is in the Dutch immigrants who brought with them the tradition of Sinterklaas we were telling you about. Sinterklaas derived in Santa Claus, and throughout the 19th century, several authors wrote tales and poems that shaped his story. The one in charge of giving him the appearance he has now was the German cartoonist Thomas Nast, who published a Christmas cartoon where he was the protagonist in the New York newspaper Harper's Weekly around 1860. He found the inspiration for his clothes on bishops like Saint Nicholas during the ancient times, who combined red and white. However, during many years, Santa didn't wear specific colors, and lots of times he was represented wearing green and white, like Father Christmas. It was during the 20th century when the myth was totally shaped. In 1902, the writer Lyman Frank Baum published the tale The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, where he explained, among other things, the origin of his magical powers. During the 30s, Coca-Cola was the one that, with their famous commercials, gave him the image we all know nowadays. Deep inside, his image or the gifts he brings us are not the most important thing here. What's important about Santa Claus is what he symbolizes, happiness and kindness he passes on to everyone.
Sherlock Tacker and Watson Ticker are back. After having successfully solved the first one of our impossible riddles, the detectives are back with a new case taking place in Christmas Day. Listen carefully, because today's mysterious murder is surrounded by betrayal and intrigue. Let's get started. It was Christmas Day. Sherlock Tacker and Watson Ticker were relaxing, drinking their morning tea in their apartment at 221B Tactical Street. Just when they were about to give each other their Christmas gifts, the phone rang. They had a new case to solve. Mr. James Pretzel had been murdered about 4 in the morning on Christmas Day. They found him on his dining room. The crime scene looked like an authentic Christmas postcard. The body laid on the floor, on the carpet, a few meters away from the Christmas tree, surrounded by some decorations that seemed to have fallen on him. A couple of Christmas balls, 3 ribbons, and a metallic star. Around the body, the weapon used to perpetrate the crime was still present. The Christmas tree's lights were still blinking with their many colors, illuminating the room. He had been choked to death with the lights, as the marks in his neck indicated. His face also had bruises everywhere. In the dining room, the table where Mr. Pretzel had celebrated his Christmas Eve dinner was still set. There was leftover seafood on a tray, a lot of delicious Christmas candy scattered over the tablecloth, and 6 empty bottles of wine. The previous night, James had invited Olivia and Andrew Marzipan to his Christmas dinner, who were lifelong friends. He had also invited his female associate, Mary Suchard. All of them spent the night at Mr. Pretzel's house. Detective Tacker, with his helper Ticker, went on to interrogate the suspects. Mary Suchard had a terrible headache. She declared that the dinner went on peacefully until Andrew and Mr. Pretzel started arguing. James had won the 3rd prize of the Christmas lottery, and Andrew asked James to lend him some money to pay a debt. But James didn't want to. Suchard was the last person to have seen James alive at 3:30 before going to bed. When Miss Marzipan was interrogated, she had a very tidy appearance, and she confirmed the fight between James and Andrew. Tacker realized that Miss Marzipan had a small cut on her right hand, where she had her watch. When Tacker asked her if she had had a part in the fight, she said she did not, that she just cut herself by accident when taking a knife from the kitchen. Mr. Marzipan looked dizzy and seemed nervous. He had a bruise on his face as well as blood stains on the sleeves of his shirt. He declared that he did get in a fight with James, and both knocked down the Christmas tree during the struggle. He was enraged and desperate due to James refusing to lend him money, but said he would have never killed his friend. His wife Olivia took him to the bathroom at about 3 in the morning, and James stayed in the dining room putting the Christmas tree back up with Mr. Shard. Detective Tacker asked his helper to bring him the fallen star that was near the corpse. When he checked the points of the star, he realized there was a red stain in there. Ticker was a bit confused, but Sherlock Tacker was already smiling, which was a sign that he had already figured out who had committed the crime. Do you know who Tacker is suspicious of? We'll give you a moment before revealing the identity of the murderer. The murderer was Olivia Marzipan. There were several details which jumped out to Tacker. First, the empty bottles of wine on the table. When Tacker and Ticker did the interrogations, Andrew Marzipan and Mary Suchard had clear symptoms of a hangover. But Olivia Marzipan did not. This was very likely due to Andrew and Mary having drunk all of the wine with the recently murdered James. And because Olivia didn't drink any wine, that gave her an advantage at the time of choking her victim to death, as James would hardly be able to defend himself while being drunk. The key element that confirmed Tacker's suspicion was the cat in Olivia's right hand. She attacked when James was putting the Christmas tree back up and choked him from the back. Because he was inebriated, Mr. Pretzel defended himself clumsily with the nearest object he had at hand, the tree's metallic star, which he had used to hurt his aggressor. Mr. Marzipan also had blood stains on his shirt, probably caused by his fight with James. On the other hand, Olivia said she had cut herself by accident in the kitchen when taking a knife. However, she is actually left-handed, which the detective deduced when he saw her watch on her right hand. Most left-handed people prefer to wear their watches on their non-dominant right hand so they can put them on more easily. If she had cut herself with a knife, she would have used her left hand to take it, and that's where the cut would have taken place, not on the right hand. Olivia then confessed that she had indeed murdered Mr. Pretzel because she wanted to find his winning lottery ticket and claim the prize money for herself. She was fed up with her life and planned to claim the prize, run away, and start a new life from scratch. Did you guess who the murderer was? Tell us in the comments any other theories which may have occurred to you. And if you want to share ideas with us about the setting for the next case, share them in the comments as well. We wish you happy holidays, and we hope you keep having fun and sharing joyful moments with your friends and family. The first time you get to meet your girlfriend's family is an important event. One day, you might become part of our family, so you gotta give a good first impression. Be attentive, fun, and charming, but always in a natural and non-forced way. And overall, don't be nervous and make them feel like you are one of them. When I was 25 years old, I was sure that Laura was the woman of my life. She was intelligent, sweet, successful, and the most generous person I've ever met. We had been together for 2 years and everything was perfect. Her family lived very far away, so I hadn't met them in person yet. I did get to know them through video calls, but you know that it isn't the same. Christmas Eve finally came, the big day. Her family spent the holidays here, staying in Laura's spacious and modern house where we were going to have our Christmas dinner. I arrived late because of work. I was worried about that, as the night was just getting started and I was already giving off a bad impression. However, Laura's father didn't care. He received me at the door with a big smile and a warm hug. I tried to apologize for being late, but he didn't care. He simply told me that work is work, and that is that. Now that I was seeing him in person, his appearance surprised me a lot. For a middle-aged man, he looked extraordinarily young and healthy. He was tall, handsome, and in good shape. I was about to discreetly ask him about his age, but he immediately took me to the dining room to meet in person the rest of the family.
They were all very delightful and showered me with compliments. Laura's mom was very happy to see me and even gave me 2 kisses on the cheek. Her appearance surprised me even more than that of her husband. She didn't look like she was older than 30, and if you compared her with Laura side by side, you would think they were sisters. And the last one to greet me, who was less effusive but still kind, was their older son. He was a handsome young man, dressed elegantly as if he was a magazine model. His hair was perfectly combed and his teeth were sparkling white. Anybody would fall for him in an instant. I started to feel a bit strange and uncomfortable. Compared to that perfect postcard family, I was feeling like a bum who was being invited to their Christmas dinner out of charity. They surely looked 1,000 times better than in a video calls. But I suppose webcams don't make anyone look especially good. While Laura was getting ready, we sat down and started chatting to get to know each other better. I started thinking about how lucky I was for finding such a good-looking and interesting family and eventually become part of it. I don't complain about my own family, not at all. I love my parents very much. But let's say they have a different style. Half an hour passed and Laura started coming downstairs. She looked gorgeous, more beautiful than ever. She looked like an angel coming down the stairs. This was all perfect, like a dream. Without thinking about it, I took a small box I had in my pocket and decided to go forward with the biggest step I had been thinking about taking for a while now. I knelt in front of her, showed her a ring in the box, and proposed to her in front of her family, who smiled out of surprise and excitement. Tears of joy escaped from her eyes, and she hugged me strongly. Her parents and brother also came closer to hug us and congratulate us. This was the perfect Christmas with the perfect family. Dinner time finally came, and we sat around the carefully set table. I preferred not to eat many appetizers, eagerly awaiting for the main dish. I was so hungry that when I saw Laura's dad and brother carrying out of the kitchen a huge tray covered with a metal cover, my mouth started watering. What was under there? I didn't ask and waited for them to take the cover off. For a few moments, I wasn't sure about which animal's roasted meat was in the tray, which looked pretty good along with a fine garnish. Then, I took a closer look at the shape of the cut-off limbs, and I couldn't believe it. I was in shock. It can't be, it must be my imagination, but it looked like a finely cooked human body. The eyes of the rest of the family were shining, and they congratulated Laura and her mother for being such good cooks. I could hardly speak, but I managed to say, But is this... Laura confirmed what I was suspecting, as if it were the most natural and normal thing in the world. They even started talking about how to prepare it, which spices to use, and the oven's temperature, while they served pieces of legs, thorax, and arms. I discreetly looked at the head, and I could notice it belonged to a young teen. But the most terrifying part was not seeing them eat a roasted human. It was the strange sensation that with each bite they had, their skin seemed to become shinier, and their aura of elegance increased. Laura's father gave me a pat on the back, encouraging me to eat. Come on, boy, you can't be eternally young and handsome without, a little sacrifice, and it's only once a year. He told me while he gave a bite to what looked like a humerus. The situation seemed so natural and their explanations were so convincing that I started to reconsider. Laura took my hand, looked at me in the eyes, and with the sweetest of smiles asked me, "Do you actually love me? Don't you want to be like us and spend the rest of your life with me?" I didn't answer. I served a piece of leg on my plate and stuffed it with my fork. I closed my eyes, opened my mouth, and determined to take the next step, I said, "I do." And before we say goodbye, we would like to leave you with the story of Rudolph. Songs, movies, games have been made with it. This reindeer deserves it all. Once upon a time, there was a very unpopular reindeer. The other reindeer made fun of him because he was born with a curious and strange red nose that could glow and be seen from a distance. Sadly, the other reindeer would frequently tell him he looked like a clown, which made Rudolph become very isolated. He no longer liked being with others, and he no longer tried to make friends. He would spend his days cooped up in his house, crying. His family was very sad because of this and wanted him to be happy just like the other reindeer. And since they realized that wouldn't happen where they lived, they decided to help Rudolph abandon the town where he lived. He walked for many days, even months. Christmas was coming and he was still walking aimlessly in the world, very sad for having to leave his home. One lonely night, he was surprised when he looked at the sky. The stars shined bright and they looked beautiful. At the same time, Santa Claus prepared his sleigh to deliver gifts all over the world. He was counting and lining up his 8 reindeer, which had a lot of experience pulling the sleigh. However, when they were ready to lift off, the sky was covered in fog. It was so thick that the reindeer couldn't even see their partners, making it impossible to fly. Santa was desperate. How was he going to take the gifts to the children? Oh, what a disaster! However, Santa suddenly saw an intense red light in the distance. It was so bright that he didn't hesitate to guide the reindeer to that light. And that's how they found that poor solitary reindeer Rudolph, who, without realizing it, had given Santa the solution to his problem. Santa asked Rudolph to please pull his sleigh with the other reindeer, so that children all over the world could get their gifts. His nose would act as a beacon. He couldn't believe it. He was so happy and excited. And that's how Santa Claus managed to spread joy and hope to all homes in the world, thanks to the bright red nose of our reindeer friend. Merry Christmas, TikTakers! We bet many of you had heard this story many times before. The story of Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, the protagonist of today's video. And we don't want to miss the chance to leave a present for you, this TikTak Rudolph. You will find the link to download it in the description box. But do you know who actually created this character? The 8 reindeer that originally pulled Santa's sleigh in his travels appeared for the first time in a poem from 1823 titled A Visit from St. Nicholas. However, Rudolph wouldn't be introduced until 1939, when Robert Louis May made him the protagonist in the poem The Red-Nosed Reindeer. He authored it as an assignment from his workplace, the Montgomery Ward retailer. It is said that Robert based this story on his own childhood to create Rudolph, and made him the protagonist because his little daughter, Barbara, loved to see the reindeer whenever they went to the zoo. Moreover, Robert asked little Barbara to listen to the first drafts of the poem. That was a great way to test if the poem would be well liked by other kids. And it was a hit. Rudolph's story soon became famous and it's shared around even to this day. Songs, movies, and even games have been made about Rudolph, a hero who really deserves them. In TikTakers, Rudolph's story also helps us remember that we are all different, but also just as good. Never feel inferior to others. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it. And if you want to see more Draw My Life videos, subscribe to our channel. See you in the next episode!